Many thanks for joining us. William Sila is our sign language interpreter there at the bottom end of your screen. I'm Linda Ogutu. Now, a high-ranking Kenyan police officers today kicked off a storm at the Mombasa High Court, blaming his seniors for the escalation of last year's deadly Mpeketoni attack. The then Lamu County Police Commander Leonard Omolo has blamed Deputy Inspector General of Police Samuel Arachi and Acting Deputy Inspector General of Police Joel Kitili for sabotaging a police counter-operation and leading to the killing of 65 people. KTN's Coast reporter Francis Ontomwa reports from Mombasa County.
When little-known Mpeketoni town of Lamu burst into flames, Leonard Omolo was the police commander, and today in his characteristic and bold confession, he revealed shocking details on why police units failed to respond promptly to the terrorism attack. Omolo told the court that his orders to junior officers to combat the enemy were dismissed by Deputy Inspector General of Police Samuel Arachi and Acting Deputy Inspector General of Police Joel Kitili, who advised the officers to keep off the battlefield. He told the court that the top two ordered junior officers not to go to the scene of the terror attack, again the police will have placed their lives at great risk if they moved to Mpeketoni during the night to fight militiamen who had attacked the local police station. Omolo said Kitili instructed General Service Unit officers based at Mkoro in Lamu not to go to Mpeketoni to avoid being ambushed. He was testifying in the trial of two men, Mahadi Swaleh Mahadi, alias Jesus, and Diana Suleiman Ahmed, charged with the murder of 65 people in last year's June 15th attack on civilians. Omolo, who is a prosecution witness, gave his account of events and made chilling revelations during cross-examination by Mahadi's lawyer Taib Ali Taib, testifying before Justice Martin Muya. His driver, a policeman, was killed in the Mpeketoni violence too. Omolo also told the court that immediate former Deputy Inspector General of Police Grace Kaindi, former Inspector General of Police David Kimayo, former Interior Cabinet Secretary Joseph Olelenku, Kitili, and other top security officers ordered him to withdraw from Boni Forest, where his officers were pursuing Al-Shabaab militants. Francis Ontomwa, KTN News, Mombasa.
Kenyan opposition leader Raila Odinga has told President Uhuru Kenyatta that his government has lost direction and has left Kenyans confused and frustrated. He says it's time Uhuru admitted defeat and sought advice from others on how to handle the myriad of problems facing the Kenyan nation. KTN's associate editor Noah Otieno reports.
Speaking after returning from the United Kingdom, the Kenyan opposition leader Raila Odinga dove straight into what he saw as the urgent crisis facing the Kenyan nation. Raila insists that President Uhuru Kenyatta is losing the war against corruption.
It is one of those rare cases where the leader should essentially tell the followers, do not follow me, I am lost. The center is failing to hold. Anarchy and collapse lurk around the corner. Things are certainly falling apart. The war on corruption is lost. Cost of living is rising. Our neighbors are closing in on us and challenging the economic advantage we long held over them.
Raila challenged President Uhuru Kenyatta to embrace a bipartisan approach to solving problems facing the nation.
Mr. President, you have engaged the nation in a dangerous ping-pong, trial and error game for more than 2 years. Alice in the Wonderland scenario makes for great fiction. It cannot and will not work for running a country, at least not for Kenya.
The ODM leader once again punched holes in the manner in which corruption was being tackled at the Ministry of Planning and Devolution, insisting that the Permanent Secretary Peter Mangiti and former Director General of the National Youth Service Nelson Gidinji were just but fall guys meant to cushion the real culprits from the long arm of the law.
DCI is himself totally compromised in this matter. When he completed his initial investigations a few weeks ago, he went and submitted his report to Madam Anne Waiguru. How can the DCI submit his investigation report to the suspect?
Already, the Director of Public Prosecutions, Keriako Tobiko, has denied claims that his office was biased and being politically manipulated in the prosecution of the National Youth Service officials. But it wasn't just corruption in the list of CORD's perceived crisis in Kenya. The coalition says that Jubilee's latest attempt to have Rule 68 of the Rome Statute dismissed in the ICC case against Deputy President William Ruto and radio journalist Joshua Sang will not prevent justice from prevailing over the matter.
Whether or not you are a member of ICC does not exonerate one.
Raila was speaking after returning from the United Kingdom, where he attended an international conference on security. The team says that the Core Kenya bill proposed to the IEBC for a referendum is the only hope Kenyans have in ridding the current government of gross corruption. Now, KTN News.
So, opposition leader Raila Odinga says President Uhuru Kenyatta's government has lost direction and has left Kenyans confused. We're focusing on that story tonight on KTN Prime. It forms the basis of our question tonight. We're asking, is Raila right to say that Uhuru needs advice on how to solve the current crisis facing Kenya? Let us know what you think. Use the hashtag KTN Prime. You can tweet us directly at KTN Kenya, at KTN News, or you can tweet me directly at Lindo Guto. I'll be sampling some of your views during this bulletin. Okay. The Kenya National Youth Service Director General Nelson Gibenji and Devolution Principal Secretary Peter Mangeti were today arraigned in court over the 695 million shillings NYS scam. The two were charged with tampering with a public service officer by threatening and intimidating Gibenji's deputy Aiden Harake not to follow up on the theft of 695 million shillings. The two were charged as the Director of Public Prosecutions ordered the interrogation of 7 senior Family Bank managers over the NYS scandal.
Just a day after he stepped aside over the 695 million shilling scandal at the National Youth Service, NYS Director General Nelson Gibenji was in the dock alongside his co-accused Devolution Principal Secretary Peter Mangeti. The two who appeared before Chief Magistrate Daniel Ogembo were charged with tampering with a public service officer by allegedly threatening and intimidating NYS Deputy Director General Adan Harake not to report and follow up with the Directorate of Criminal Investigations over the conspiracy to steal 695 million shillings from the NYS. The two are charged alongside 24 others who were accused of conspiracy to defraud and stealing 791 million shillings. Gibenji and Mangeti pleaded not guilty to the charges. Mangeti's lawyer Kioko Kilukumi told the court that he will challenge the validity of the charge, claiming that it is not within the law. The two were freed on a 20 million shilling bond each and a surety of a similar amount or a cash bail of 3 million shillings. Chief Magistrate Daniel Ogembo ordered them to report to the Anti-Banking Fraud Unit for fingerprinting. The case will be mentioned on Tuesday next week. Still on the NYS scandal, the Director of Public Prosecutions, Keriako Tobiko, has ordered a probe on 7 senior Family Bank officers over the NYS scandal. The DPP in a statement said the 7, including the branch manager, branch customer service supervisor, operations manager, and relationship manager, be interrogated and their statements recorded as suspects to determine whether they aided, abetted, or facilitated the theft of 791 million shillings from the NYS. The probe will seek to find out if there was no compliance with the Banking Act, Proceeds of Crime, and Anti-Money Laundering Act and regulations. The DPP wants the investigations completed and a report submitted to him within 7 days. Rita Tinina, KTN News.
Kenyan Treasury Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich has asked his cabinet colleagues in county government to reduce foreign travels to assist cut on government spending. Rotich further banned all benchmarking and marketing tours by the counties, adding that the inclusion of each member of every foreign delegation must be justified. The CS's statement comes in the wake of recent incidences of increased foreign travels, especially among members of county assemblies.
The foreign travel, I think we've provided, guidelines on how, the delegations by the cabinet secretaries and the PSS, the number of delegations that should accompany them. The international visits must be well justified, and also we have suspended benchmarking and study tours, and this also affects both the national government and the county government.
So opposition leader Raila Odinga says that President Uhuru's government has lost direction and has left Kenyans confused. That forms the basis of a big question tonight. We're asking, is Raila right to say that Uhuru needs advice on how to solve the current crisis facing Kenya? Kabir Samuel says, unfortunately, Raila is politicizing the whole issue of advice. He should call him privately. Koetken says Raila is just laughing and at this accusation to the government and not giving remedy. His approach is not impressive. Emmanuel says, of course, Uhuru needs advice. Things are working against the country and he seems clueless. Finally, Atich Zep says, yes, the economy is on the verge of collapse, soaring public debt, corruption, worshipped. Do we need Jesus to tell us that things are not working in this country? That is where we're taking a short break on KTN Prime. Stay with us. We have more news coming your way. Welcome back. Thank you for staying with KTN Prime. Let's now cross the borders into Uganda. And Uganda's Ministry of Health has announced a stock out of ARVs in the country. This follows reported cases from different health centers and regional hospitals across the country, with patients having to share drugs or even go without treatment. As KTN Solomon Serwanja reports, the Ugandan government needs an additional 100 million Ugandan shillings to save the situation.
An estimated 750,000 HIV-positive patients could go without treatment in a month following the stockout of the antiretroviral drugs in Uganda. Civil society activists raised the red flag after shortages were reported in more than 6 districts without any intervention from government. According to USAID, the stockouts have been caused by the limited funding towards the HIV treatment.
The call is to the government of Uganda to consider increasing its budgetary allocation for HIV/AIDS and tuberculosis from the current 90 billion shillings to 180 billion Uganda shillings. We believe this can happen.
The Health Ministry, however, blames it to the depreciating shilling against the dollar.
There are some substantive issues, especially because of the escalation of the dollar rate, which could affect the amount of money in terms of dollars which we have for the medicine. Then this is a matter which is financial, and the Ministry of Finance is already been alerted.
The National Medical Stores, which is responsible for procuring the drug, says that they need an additional 100 billion Ugandan shillings to restock before the end of December. But as the Ugandan government ponders upon where to get the required additional funds, the World Health Organization is putting pressure to start all HIV-positive patients on treatment.
So our standard was CD4 cell count, and which was around 350. But now WHO recommends 500, but also other groups which must be automatically put on medicines. All pregnant women, all adolescents, all children, if they are found with HIV, all TB patients, whether their CD4 is high or low, they should get ARVs.
The government also blames the stockouts on patients who take more than what they need.
Medicine like maybe for 5 months, or you receive that you have another patient and you take for them. Some of those medicines, you are not going to consume them. Then you are going to end up throwing them away, or they reach their expiry date. So medicines are life-saving interventions, and they have to be protected really.
In the interim, the government has resorted to providing an earlier pill, which was rejected by the patients on grounds of being too bitter. Solomon Serwanja, KTN News, Kampala, Uganda.
Hope is rife that Uganda can resolve that situation as soon as possible. Let's bring you back into the country. The Nikofiti campaign, dubbed Ability Beyond Disability, had its final event of the season today. 40 beneficiaries received wheelchairs and other assistive devices at the Kasarani Gymnasium here in Nairobi. Kenya Reinsurance Corporation Limited is aiming at rehabilitating persons living with disabilities by giving them a fair chance at self-reliance as well as an opportunity to participate in socio-economic activities. Kenya Re has partnered with the Association for the Physically Disabled of Kenya and Standard Group. This year, the campaign also focused on a new campaign to acquire business parks within Nairobi to be used by people with disabilities.
Ndio shinda ya mwenzangu, hiyo ni shinda yangu. Be your brother's keeper. What we are doing here is basically to distribute vending machines, which are wheelchairs, which have the capability of selling merchandise. There's a tray on the wheelchair, and there's a lockable unit where you can lock the merchandise. The whole purpose is to economically empower persons with disabilities, so that we have now moved a level higher than what we were distributing before.
You're watching KTN Prime. We thank you for staying with us. Remember, today is Wednesday, and being Wednesday, of course, we have JKL live immediately after this bulletin. Let me bring in Jeff Koinange. Jeff, who do you have on the bench today?
That's right, Linda. You know, if it's Wednesday, it's all about the state of the nation. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the state of corruption, and we're going to take a microcosm of what corruption is in the country. And by that, I mean, we're going to be talking about the debacle that has come to be known as Imperial Bank. We're going to be speaking to 3 different depositors with 3 different stories. And I tell you, you want to stay on and listen to their stories. They're heart-wrenching, they're horrible. It's like there is nothing to look forward to. All their life savings, everything they've earned is frozen. They don't know whether they'll get it back, and we're going to be talking about the way forward with the whole Imperial Bank scandal. What went wrong? And will people recover after this, or will it go the way of all the other banks that have collapsed and been liquidated by the central bank? Stay tuned. Jeff Koinange live coming up. You don't want to miss it. But before that, and right after the news, it is the only show in East and Central Africa that creates millionaires literally twice a week. Tonight, the Lotto. Jackpot, 100 million shillings. Are you going to be the lucky one? Stay tuned. Lotto first, followed by Jeff Koinange live. We'll take a commercial break. We'll be back with Linda Gutu and the rest of KTN Prime. Back in a moment.
Back. Thank you for staying with KTN Prime. Let's now take a look at business news. Troubled Imperial Bank will require as much as 40 billion shillings in new capital to be put back on track. A Central Bank of Kenya official involved in the revival proposals told a local daily. The new capital will cover the deposits and loans that were outside the official balance sheet and financial statements, generally referred to as parallel banking. The official financial statement showed the bank held 57 billion shillings in deposits, indicating it was within the threshold of capital set by the law. But court papers revealed there was nearly 20 billion more that had not been officially disclosed. In terms of loans, 34 billion had been lent without due process, as it was not factored into the financial statements, thereby making the capital ratio relative to assets look rosier than was actually the case. Now, to cover for both the previously undisclosed deposits and loans, the banks and the regulator are discussing proposals to inject new capital, including conversion of some of existing deposits into equity.
We
we have tried to communicate, to say this is what's happening. So communicating when we actually took the bank in receivership, communicating when we sort of started off on the next phase. I, for instance, issued a press release saying that I've talked to we had a meeting with the shareholders. And frankly, today I will have another meeting with the shareholders, precisely to get them to embrace this plan and move ahead with it. So we are really pushing in that angle. Now I cannot say more in terms of the fights that we have to do with them, but frankly, you can be sure that it will be very clear that where we want to go and how quickly, because we can do this in a month as we communicated to all of you. I hope I have also assured you in terms of depositors that they will, if the plan is executed, if the shareholders come clean and come through with what we are requesting, that the depositors will actually get their deposits back. It may take some time for some of them, but for the most part, the small shareholders, the small depositors will get access to their deposits right away, and the others in a sort of a structured way. So in a sense, it will be a much better solution than closing a bank, as you well imagine.
I think the central bank is handling that issue well. The problems are still apparently to come up with such a magnitude of hiding operations by one relatively small bank is something very unusual. Normally, when there is a problem, you can see it in the financial indicators, but the financial indicators of Imperial Bank were all positive. They were even lending in the interbank market. So I think there is a lot of investigation that still needs to take place in order to understand well what was happening with the bank. But I think we appreciate the decisiveness of the central bank in order to address this promptly rather than delaying and making an announcement of the intentions. They still believe the bank can go back to the market. I know that in Kenya that hasn't happened in the past, but maybe with more information the central bank manages to calm the markets. I don't think at this point there is a real turmoil because of that. Markets are operating.
That is going to be the focus of the conversation that Jeff Koinange is going to be having immediately after this bulletin on JKEL. Experiences from people who've suffered from this. He says heart-wrenching, horrible stories, life savings gone down the drain. That is a conversation that you want to listen to. Now, the clergy has raised the red flag, accusing mining firms of sidelining locals in their pursuit to prospects for main roads. Religious leaders meeting under the auspices of the National Council of Churches in Kenya want mining firms to be transparent in their dealings to avoid conflict in the nascent oil and gas sectors. KTN's Abiagina spoke to the leaders to get a deeper sense of what else they are advocating for.
Top religious leaders have faulted mining operations being carried out in the country, citing lack of participation. They say this continues to hold back locals from benefiting from wealth generated from mineral resources.
I say we have to share, otherwise we'll have many few people taking the natural resources. Profiteering companies that engage in mining do not give a fair return on the income generated to the nations and the communities.
According to the church leaders, the developments into the mining sector ought to take on a more consultative approach, even as Kenya works on developing a national mining strategy.
It is possible to lay down policies and a framework that makes it possible for investors to make a return, for the communities to get a fair return, and for the nation to enjoy development objectives and outcomes that are reflective of the wealth being generated.
Kenya's extractive sector has been on a gradual growth path, with earnings from the sector clocking an average of 10 billion shillings. But in many instances, local communities have had deep resentment against mining firms, a concern the clergy once addressed.
And we're not seeking for an alternative engagement. We are seeking for a complementary engagement.
So far, among the major mining operations in the country is Base Resources, based in Kwale County, that mines titanium, and the ongoing exploration of coal in the Mui Basin in Kitui County.
Mark you, government is not a miner. Government is a facilitator.
The clergy now want a seat on the table to champion for a comprehensive compensation framework for displaced communities and the establishment of a national resettlement policy. The mining sector in Kenya has been tipped to be a game changer if well managed. Kenya presently boasts of oil finds in the northern part of the country and various mineral finds as well. Abiagina, KTN Business.
And sadly, in New Zealand, the great John Lomu passed on. Lomu scored 43 tries in 73 matches for New Zealand between the year 1994 and 2002. Had been diagnosed with a rare and a very serious kidney condition. It forced him to quit the game, and he had a kidney transplant in the year 2004, but the organ stopped functioning in the year 2011. Family spokesman John Matthew told the New Zealand television that Lomu's death was totally unexpected, and that he had only arrived back from the UK on Tuesday after spending time there for the Rugby World Cup. Lomu made his test debut in 1994 against France in Christchurch. Despite him never winning the World Cup, he's the joint top try scorer in the history, alongside South Africans Will Brian Habana with 15 tries in 11 games during the 1995-1999 tournaments. And may soul rest in peace. Now, after 5 weeks of regional soccer talent search, the national trials for the Safaricom Next Generation kicked off today at Nyayo National Stadium. The event will end tomorrow, where a total of 180 young boys and girls will be selected to join the Professional Dreams Academy next year. Take a look.
The national trials of the Safaricom Next Generation kicked off at Nyayo National Stadium, where a total of 75 talented young boys and girls between the age of 11 and 16 years will be selected to join My Professional Dreams Academy next year. The 2-day trials that will end on Thursday brought together a total of 108 young talents who qualified in the regional tryouts held in Kisumu, Mombasa, Thika, Nakuru, Kakamega and Nairobi for the last 5 weeks. Out of the 180 shortlisted finalists taking part in the national trials, 64 are girls and 116 are boys. Of the 75 that will be selected to join the academy in January 2016, there will be 2 teams for the girls and 4 teams for the boys.
That doesn't mean everybody else that's here won't be going forward with them. We're going to invite every single player that's here to come and coach at the academy as guest players during 2016.
If I make it to the academy, I would want to take football to a professional level and be a professional player.
The players will be selected based on their skills, speed, fitness, agility, movement of the players in the field, character, fitness, discipline, and the understanding of the game. Safaricom Limited sponsored the program to a tune of 50 million Kenyan shillings. With more to do.
Is Raila right to say that President Uhuru needs advice on how to solve the current crisis facing Kenya? Francis Muya says he might be in need of advice, but at least not from Raila and Horde. Kip says, of course, he needs advice, but not from the people who suggested a paybill number to solve teachers' problem. Finally, Nyamai says, yes, Uhuru cannot pretend to know everything when in reality the nation is sinking. Just some of your feedback on our big question tonight on whether or not you think opposition leader Raila Odinga is right saying that President Uhuru Kenyatta needs advice. That is where we leave it on KTN Prime. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good night. I'm Linda Goto. Remember, JKL begins right now on the home channel just right after Lotto.